Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how many of you are fans of Sherlock Holmes, but those who are will know that the solution to the biggest mystery often is right in front of us. While Scotland Yard drains entire canals in search of the ultimate piece of evidence in the hope to unmask the real criminal, Sherlock dresses up as a simple guy and solves the mystery simply by talking to the victim's horseman. We could take lessons of him also in solving one of the most intriguing mysteries, namely, how did Beethoven use his metronome? His tempi seem ridiculously fast, impossible often, but instead of talking to the horseman to simply solve that mystery once and for all, we also seem to prefer dragging canals instead. An excellent example of only a few years back, two Spanish researchers came to this final conclusion. Beethoven undoubtedly must have read the number of his metronome below rather than, as one should, above the weight. Yes, I know. Dragging canals is spectacular. We love it. Especially compared to a simple, boring talk to a horseman. Perhaps therefore this is going viral. Who, by the way, tries solutions like this in reality? Ever tried to read the number on the metronome below the weight? What kind of idiot do we think Beethoven actually was? And finally, what's the fuss all about a solution like that? Dragging the canal didn't provide any clue, as the difference in tempo between the top and the bottom of that wave doesn't solve Beethoven's metronome problem either. So after a century of draining canals now, maybe it's time to talk to the horseman instead. And when we do that, we finally will find the solution to that big Beethoven problem. It was all the time right in front of us. I'm talking about the infamous Maelzel Canon, ignored by all musicologists in the recent or distant past, until now. Let's try to unleash the Sherlock Holmes in us, shall we? Welcome to the very first episode of Tempo Talks. Beethoven and canons? Not the ones used to shoot, though they knew all of that in the Vienna of Napoleon's days as well, but the musical ones. Beethoven was in the habit of writing canons on the spot for friends as farewell gifts, signs of appreciation or friendship, or even as a joke or a tease. It was considered a great honor to receive a canon from the master. The one from Maelzel was first published by Anton Schindler in 1854 in the Niederrheinische Musikzeitung. Schindler describes it as originating during a gathering of friends at the composer's home on the occasion when Maelzel was about to depart for England to patent his metronome. And during this party, Beethoven improvised this canon, which imitates the ticks of the metronome. About Schindler, well, in the later part of the composer's life, Schindler assisted Beethoven in many aspects of his business and daily life, and he became his first biographer in 1840. Unsurprisingly, his work is not without errors, which was equally the case with other early Beethoven studies. Some academics even assume that the canon did not originate from Beethoven at all, and suggest it was produced by Schindler. In our opinion, there is no basis for this assertion, but for the purpose we present the canon here, this discussion is irrelevant. The canon goes as follows in the performance of 2015. Schindler only brought this canon to the attention of the public in 1854 for a reason he explains in a footnote in the third edition of his Beethoven biography. This information is of paramount importance for the solution we're after. And I quote, "The misinterpretation, or rather the hurrying, of the allegretto of the Eighth Symphony by even the most distinguished conductors prompted me to publish this canon along with the anecdote about its composition in the Niederrheinische Musikzeitung 1854 number 49. But I doubt that my comments have made any difference." End of quote. Schindler was one of a select group of traditionalists who, particularly from the mid-19th century onwards, starting opposing the practice of performing classical works at much too fast tempi. His many descriptions of this practice are extremely interesting and agree perfectly with what other of his colleagues of that time were saying. They were also aware that they were fighting a losing battle, which is somewhat borne out by the last sentence of the Schindler quote I just mentioned. But what does all of this has to do with the solution to that metronome mystery? Well, Schindler published the canon with the intention of putting a stop to the constant acceleration of tempi of this allegretto and other pieces. To this end, he even reduced the metronome number from Beethoven's 88 for the symphony to 72 for the canon. It could be that Beethoven intended the original canon, if he in fact was the composer, to be slower than the final symphony, but whether or not this was actually the case is of little importance. But now it comes. More important is the fact that he explained the humor of the canon in a way that must have been obvious at this time, but is incomprehensible now. And I quote, "From this canon, the allegretto emerged. The first voice presents note for note the theme of this movement. The words indicate its humorous character, and the metronome marking shows the proper tempo for the allegretto movement. Ta-ta-ta-ta are the pendulum strokes of the metronome." End of quote. At first glance, Schindler says nothing new. Today, anyone will agree that this theme imitates the ticking of a metronome, which is not particularly remarkable. Listen, for instance, to John Elliott Gardner.
He is really enjoying himself. He's having fun because he's taking the new invention by Maelzel of the metronome and saying, "Yes, Mr. Maelzel, I can deal with this," and saying, "Yep." A completely mechanical articulation in the woodwind instruments.
However, the twist in the tale is in the last sentence, which in the original German reads like this: "Ta-ta-ta-ta sind die Pendelschläge des Metronoms." When we look again at the canon, or for that sake at the allegretto of the Eighth Symphony, it is immediately noticeable that Schindler's description of the joke is faulty to us. In both cases, 16th notes are used as the main rhythm, and according to Schindler, they represent the metronome ticks. Only the metronome mark in both cases beats the 8th note, not the 16th. Listen again to the singers now with the score. In their performance, the ta-ta-tas go in double the speed of the metronome ticks, contrary to what Schindler describes. Every tick represents a ta, thus a 16th note. But if every single ta or every 16th note indeed represents a single metronome tick, we must accept that Schindler used the metronome in a different way, something we call here the WBMP, the whole beat metronome practice. In that system, each tick indicates the subdivision of the note value in the metronome mark, much like physicists still today read a pendulum.
7, 8, 9, and 10.
The fact that Schindler was not contradicted by anyone, neither by contemporaries nor by later generations of Beethoven scholars, can only mean that they all took the WBMP for granted. This little but crucial piece of evidence has the power of changing our entire understanding of our musical past. If it had been written by Beethoven, we wouldn't even have a discussion about it. To focus just on the allegretto of the 8th Symphony, it will go from a performance like this
Great fun.
to this. Notice the mechanical imitation of the machine that finally becomes clear, and to give you a final piece of evidence on the level of Sherlock Holmes, if I may say so myself, the ta-ta-tas in Gardner's version go in a speed of 176, a speed Beethoven's metronome didn't have. The fastest it could go was 160. All symphonies have been recorded recently by Alberto Sanna and myself on this beautiful fortepiano and the symphonic transcriptions by Karl Czerny. Not only a box with 10 CDs is about to be produced, I'm recording this video early April 2024, but an incredible package which we proudly call the full Beethoven experience is waiting for you. Link in the description below. And the best news is this: you do not need Sherlock to enjoy it. Beethoven will take care of that himself. Thanks for watching. We see each other soon again. Bye.